Hello everyone, welcome to Titan Web Tutorials. In this video I will show you how to use Salesforce Get with your own Apex code. Okay, so let's start with the Apex. What we have here is two REST resource classes. What they do, the first one is Chuck Norris category. We're calling an API, an external API, just a fun API to get Chuck Norris jokes. And the first one is to get the categories of the jokes. And what we're doing here is parsing the response to match our drop-down structure that has a label and a value. And we'll return that into the Titan Web project. And from there, we'll set that categories into our drop-down. In a second, we'll see how we do that exactly. And the next one is, again, another REST resource, Chuck Norris random, which gets a category that we will send from what we selected in the dropdown, and we will get a joke from that. And in this one, we're not doing nothing to the JSON, we're just returning it as it is, and I'll show you how we can parse it within Titan Web. Okay, so let's see what elements we have on the screen here. So I have a joke categories dropdown. I have a button, which once I click this button, I want the query to run. I have a paragraph where once I change a category, I select the category I want it to call the Apex, return the joke, and put it in the paragraph. And then later on, we'll parse it into instead of a JSON, we want to get just the joke itself. Okay, so let's see what I've done so far. So I have, if I head over to Salesforce, I have a get, which is your Apex. And what it has no parameters. We're not sending nothing. We just want to get the data, just categories. Doesn't accept any parameters. So if we had a parameters on the class, we would send it over here. We'll see that with the categories. And our mapping is very simple. We have a page parameter called Norris category, and we assign the value that we get back from Apex to that variable. From there, if I'll head over to tools and take a look at the variables and conditions, I have a condition saying Norris category is not empty, then please affect joke categories element and set items from JSON to the Norris category. And let's see how this runs. And what makes that get to run, it's a user action. So just in the interactivity of the button, I configured the on-click action, and we're running Salesforce get to get joke categories. Okay, so let's see how this works. So I'll refresh this, and I have a debugger here in Salesforce so we can see that happening live. So if I'll run I'll click this guy. So we see the request coming in, and we responded back to Titan with that JSON, again, value and label. And if I'll head back to the category, we can select the category. Now, once we select the category, what we want here to happen is Titan to call again our other API and return the joke into the paragraph. So let's head over and do so. I'll select joke categories, and I'll say conditions. This is my dropdown, configure conditions. And I'll say joke categories, value is not empty. And what I will do is configure action. I'll head over to Salesforce action, and I'll configure a new one. So I'll say your Apex. And I'll give it the class name. So our class name is Chuck Norris random. Obviously the URL mapping. And we will say user action. And our parameters is page parameter. We want that value from the dropdown. So our parameter will be joke categories value. This is our dropdown. And what we want to pass in is the parameter that we want to get in the Apex. So in my instance, I'm looking for a category. So this is what I will pass in here. And now the only thing I have to do is map the response I get back from Titan. So what I want to do with this one is map it to a page parameter, and I just added a new variable to the page, and I call that Norris joke. This is basically the response, and I'll map it over here, and I'll map the value into that one. So the value is just a raw response we get from Apex. In this instance, it's going to be a JSON, and we would want to map it. Then we would want to parse it as we see fit. So we'll say get the joke from Apex. That's perfect. And let's map it also directly to our paragraph to see how the response looks. So I'm going to map the value into the paragraph as well on the page. And let's close this, and we'll run our get the joke from Apex, hit apply, and save. And let's refresh our preview, and let's run the get categories, and let's select div. So we queried Apex, we got a response. Here is our debug, so we can see the response we got. We got a JSON, and now within the JSON we have the value of the joke. Jack Norris can delete the recycle bin. Okay, this is really cool, and we see it over here as well. And if we'll switch to a different category, we'll run another request and get a new joke. Now, how do we handle this in Titan? Let's say we want to break this down and assign just a value from that JSON into another field in Titan. Okay, so what I will do first, let's add it like let's do a text. Do a text field. I'll place it over here. Make it a little bit bigger. I'll say the size, let's do 250 pixels. That's fine. And let's name it the joke. Perfect. Now what we want to do is create a condition on our variable, on the joke variable, and then run some JavaScript to parse that JSON. So I'll head over to tools, and I'll say conditions, and I'll add another rule, and I'll call this, let's parse joke JSON, and we'll select our field, so that will be our other variable, so the Norris joke, and I'll say is not empty, configure action, system action, and I want to execute a JavaScript. So here you're free to do whatever you want. So we'll say joke JSON, and it will equal to ft get param value. So this is a function that you get from Titan Web to access parameters, and the only thing we need to pass in is our parameter name. In our instance, it's the Norris joke. So I'll head back over here, and I'll say give me please Norris joke, and that's perfect. And what we want to do here, we want to parse it into a JSON. So we'll do JSON.parse, and we'll parse this. So we'll get the joke as a JSON parameter and not a string. And now we can do like console, and we can log the joke JSON just to make sure we have everything properly. And we'll do this, and we'll hit apply and apply and apply. Let's save it. We did not set the value yet, Let's just take a look at the metadata. This one is E10. Okay, perfect. So let's refresh our preview and we'll get the categories, and I can run this whenever the page loads. I just wanted to show you that function with the button. And if we'll take a look at the console, we can see our object that has a bunch of properties, and what we're looking for is the value. This is what we want to assign to the joke. Okay, let's head back over there and tools again, and I'll say custom variables conditions, and let's edit this one, go back to the execute.js, and now the only thing we want to do is use another form Titan web function that's called ft set value by id, and it accepts 3 parameters. Okay, so let's give it a little, set the value to a field, and this one will get the page ID, the element ID that you want to set to, and the value. So our value is joke JSON that value, as we saw. This is what we get, and now we need to get the element. So we looked at it before, we want to assign it to that text field, so that's E10, and we need to get the page ID as well, and I'll show you where you can grab that from. So we'll head over to pages, I'll select this guy, and we see the page ID is P2. Okay, so we'll head back over there and go back to our condition, and we'll edit the JavaScript, and we'll say E2 is page ID, E10 is element ID, and the value that I want to set is the joke JSON.value. Hit apply, and if we configured everything correctly, we should have that value set to the field. Okay, so we'll run this. We'll select a dev joke, and we made a mistake. So let's take a look. We'll head back to our condition, so tools, custom variables, take a look at the condition. I know already what it is. Instead of P2 we did E2. So P2 is the page ID, E10 is the element ID, and joke JSON.value is the value that we want to set. So let's save this guy and we'll refresh, and this time let's run the categories, and we'll select something over here, and here it is. So we have purely the joke parsed from that JSON into our text element, and this is how it's done.